So first of all, I want to thank you guys for really, giving a lot of my recent videos, including the ALF one, a lot of love and respect, with the viewership. But I also wanted to come on here, YouTube and audio podcast wise, to kind of talk about something, concerning ALF. And basically what, has been pretty much talked about for quite some time. And what that is, it's been talked about for, quite some time, is basically bringing ALF back. Bringing him back, in an all new, I guess, either series, movie, or whatever. And if that is the case of either and of or, you have to wonder exactly what would the movie or the series be. Would it be a continuation of the original series, but set years later or decades later? Or would it be something all new and original? Well, let's talk about that. The first thing that people have talked about potentially was an ALF return is maybe an animated movie. Well, not an animated movie, but more along the lines of a CG live-action hybrid. Well, ALF and the Melmacians would be CG. But would that work? Would that work? Could they get the texture creatively in CG of what ALF looks like, down to a T? I would say, yeah. I would say they'd be able to do it. I mean, they've proven in CG that they can do a lot of things, with, computer animation, computer-generated imagery. They've proven that they can do a lot. I mean, for example, whether you like to admit it or not, look at Space Jam. Space Jam: A New Legacy. No one ever thought they'd see the Looney Tunes that way in CGI, but they made it happen. Take a look at that Muppet character in the Rescue Ranger movie, the Disney Plus movie. That was completely CGI, apparently, and it looked like an actual puppet. To be honest, but it was CG. Well, from what people could, look at, being animation experts, it was CG. But yeah, it was computer-generated imagery. So, yeah, they could probably get ALF's, they could probably get his texture, and everything down to a T that, it would basically look like it's the actual puppet, that we saw, on television. Which, I wouldn't have a problem with if the movie, stays true to the original source material in some way. And of course, with a movie, you can do, especially depending on the budget, if it's decent, if it's a decent sized budget, you can definitely do a lot with a movie. You can definitely do a lot with a film. You can give ALF an origin, basically. Let us see Melmac, on the big screen for the first time, and see its destruction, see it blowing up, if you will. You could do that, and you can show ALF and the other Melmacians that would escape that would be capable of escaping, getting into pods and going across the universe and landing wherever they could to try to find a new home or something like that. You could do that, and like I said, depending on the budget, the opportunity is endless. It really is. The opportunity is endless when wanting to tell something of that magnitude, if you will. But again, as I wait for my bus here, but again, would it work? Would, would would people accept a feature film adaptation retelling, rebooted version of ALF, in live action CGI? Would they accept it? And again, depending on who would be behind the animation for ALF and his Melmacians, I would say, there's a good chance that they might be up for it. They'd be okay with it. Like I said, if it stays true to the source material, almost to a T, if you will, well, at least close to it, then I don't think anybody would have problems with it whatsoever. So yeah, I could see them, being, accepting or willing, well, not accepting, but willing to give a feature film ALF movie a chance. If it was done in a way that the CGI made the, ALF and the Melmacians look almost exactly what you saw in the live action 80s, early 90s series, I think they'd be very accepting of that. And again, the story you could tell all across within a span of an hour and 40 minutes, almost an hour and 50 minutes, 2 hours almost, would be tremendous. I mean, think about it. You could have, elements from the original show and everything, thrown in there. Like you could throw in elements from the finale, with the military and everything, finding out about ALF and, wanting to capture him. You could do a whole story around that. Even take elements, if you want to, from Project ALF, if you still want to consider that canon, to the original series. You could take elements from that and incorporate it in there, and probably in the long run use a feature film like ALF, for a new generation, CGI and all, to catapult maybe into a new series, animated or live action, in the future for a service like, let's say, HBO Max or Max, whatever it's going to be called, or Netflix or whoever. So I think a feature film, feature film based on ALF and everything, with what they plan to do there, I think would be a great direction to go. And I think fans, new and old, would be very accepting of it, as long, and like I said, as long as it stays true to what the original story was about. The other idea would be to basically do like a continuation of some kind of the original series, but do it in a way that, I guess, if Paul Flasco, the guy that was behind ALF, the creator, the voice and all that, the puppeteer, if Paul Flasco has his way. And I apologize, that was a call. They think they're in a race right now. Yeah, that's what happens at night when you wait for the bus. You see cars deciding to race off and pretend they're in a race or something like that. But anyway, getting back on topic, Paul Flasco, the guy behind ALF, the creator, the puppeteer and all that, has pretty much, I guess in his own way, made it clear, or at least through the interpretation of ALF, basically using ALF himself, that Project ALF, shouldn't really be considered canon, but yet it is. Because it is basically a continuation, mainly of the series. And, again, I understand, maybe, why he doesn't want to consider it canon, because, it's not the way he was originally planning for the show to go out, or the original franchise. The original franchise, to go out the way it did. And I do apologize. I'm a little tired. I do apologize. But yeah, the other idea that's been tossed around is to do some kind of like a continuation of the original series, and act basically like Project ALF never happened, and just go from there. Maybe have the continuation take place years later, and the Tanner kids are grown up or something. Because we know that ALF and the Melmacians, they do age, but they age very slowly. Like, to them, 2 centuries is only like 2 decades, or or 12 years or something like that, or whatever. So So yeah, we know they age slowly, and uh, basically in the case of ALF, a continuation of the original series in some form, I think would be more beneficial for Paul Flasco than anything, because it's, he'd be able to, basically continue the series the way he originally envisioned, and basically take maybe ideas from Project ALF and incorporate them into what he wanted originally for season 5. But again, that's something that that's something that hope that will, excuse me, hold on. Sorry, I got tongue-tied. Like I said, I'm tired. I've worked today and everything. But anyway, that is something that they can probably consider, whoever he works things out with, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, HBO Max, whoever. If he can if he can work out some kind of deal to do that, I think he'd be happy with it. And pretty much he could come out officially, after that as himself, not just as ALF, but as himself, and say, hey, Project ALF is not canon anymore. This continuation that takes place years later, this is canon, not what you saw on ABC in 1996. So yeah, I think a soft continuation of the original series could work. Depending on how he would make it work, how it would be done. And finally, the other idea is just to reboot the series as something new. Basically, do a rebooted series. I mean, we've seen it happen a lot. I mean, a lot of the series that have, come back in a way have been either softly rebooted, continued, but basically rebooted with a new cast and all that, or just straight up rebooted, as if basically it's all new. Nothing, nothing, is the same. Nothing's a continuation of anything prior. It's all new, original material. But it's kind of based on the same concept. So yeah, I could see a reboot of ALF potentially happening in the future, if that's the direction. Probably, I guess, depending on who looks at it this way, it's the most, sensible direction they might be able to go with. So who knows? That might be what they do. And and here's the thing too. Who knows what they would do with a reboot? Who knows what they would do with a reboot? They could do an all animated reboot with maybe a primetime animated one for everybody, like the original series was. They could do a Saturday morning like animated reboot where it's just for kids, but it kind of stays true to the original concept. Who knows? Who knows? And with a reboot, we know that you could do a lot more. Like I mentioned earlier, you could probably show the destruction of Melmac and everything, and the Melmacians escaping, and ALF, because of that, eventually arriving on Earth. You could do all that. You can. And that might be something else that Paul Velasco could consider, because he is working on trying to get a reboot going. He is trying to, he is trying to work on getting a reboot going, but he's also, like I said previously, trying to figure out other ways to probably continue ALF, with a soft retcon, like I mentioned, before this, as well as maybe even do a movie that basically is an origin story of how everything came to be. How Melmac blew up, meeting the Tanners, if you will. Not the Tanners of Full House, but the Tanners here of ALF fame. You could do all that and it would work. I think it would honestly work in the long run. But if a reboot, from the ground up, basically an entire retelling for an all new generation of ALF and how things came to be is probably the next best thing, if not the best thing to go with, then I think that might work. The only question, again, like I said, is how would it be presented? Would it be presented as, an animated primetime, family animated series? Would it be presented as a Saturday morning-like series? Would it be a live-action series that's CGI, or a live-action series that's similar to the original concept? just a puppet, which is ALF, interacting with live action humans. Who knows? But yeah, that is another possibility he's talked about, doing an actual reboot. But overall, it's all up to what Paul Flasco, and the people at Alien Productions will want to do. And I think Warner Brothers still has ties to ALF, so like I said, it's up to what Paul Velasco, Alien Productions, and potentially Warner Brothers Discovery will want to do with the property in the near future. They got 3 choices, like I said, that have been primarily talked about, and each of them do have the merits, do have positive merits to go along with them. But what do you guys think? Which direction do you think they will go in? Do you think it'll be a movie? Do you think it might be a soft continuation where they ignore the events of Project ALF, as it never happened? Or do you think it'll be a straight-up reboot? Either it's a straight-up animated reboot for the entire family, a la like Simpsons and all that. Do you think it, or Bob's Burgers or whatever? Or do you think it might be a Saturday morning-like reboot that's animated? Or do you think it might be a CGI live-action reboot series, or even one that's just like the original one that preceded it? Actual puppet interacting with humans. Let me know what your thoughts are, and where do you think it could, where you think we could end up with it. Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. You will get an audio podcast version of this later at BW Roses Discussions. And until next time, guys, I'm